What workforce trends and priorities are impacting the human resources landscape across Australia and New Zealand in 2026? Today we are joined by Josh Campbell, Vice President and Head of Human Resources at Tritium, to break down what is shaping hiring decisions, career choices and workforce planning across the human resources market. As 2026 continues to unfold, employers are navigating steadier conditions while still needing to make careful decisions about capability, structure and workforce priorities. But with experienced HR talent still in demand, how can organisations build people functions that are ready to come for what's next? Supported by data from Australia and New Zealand's leading employment report, our guest industry expert will look at what workforce priorities are leading the charge for HR teams, which skills are becoming more important in 2026, what trends will shape HR through 2026 and into 2027, and are businesses moving quickly enough on AI or taking the right level of caution? Hello and welcome to People to People and Frog Recruitment's 2026 Human Resources Market Analysis. My name is Punshon and I'm the Managing Director of People to People Recruitment Victoria. Jumping straight into it today, what trends are shaping the HR market in 2026? Based on the latest data from our 2026 Employment and Salary Trends report, after a more uneven period last year, HR has moved into a steadier phase. Turnover has started to settle and the outlook for 2026 is more stable than what many teams were dealing with previously. But stable does not mean easy. HR teams are still operating in a market where experience capability is competitive and where expectations on the function continue to grow. Hiring remains measured and practical. A large share of recruitment is still replacement driven and businesses focus on keeping core HR functions running. But there is also hiring linked to business expansion and organisational transformation, which shows that HR teams are still being pulled into broader business change. Overall, this is a steadier HR market, but is still one under pressure. So for shifting candidate expectations to a growing demand for specialist skills, employers are navigating big change in 2026. So to break down more about what's actually happening in the market, we're joined today by Josh Campbell, the VP and Head of Human Resources of Tritium. So thank you for joining us today, Josh.
Great to be with you. Thanks for inviting me on today.
So at the end of 2025, as per our report, professionals in the HR space were stating that they expected the market to be more stable but still stretched. So for you and your team, what would you describe the first half of 2026 in your market and region? And does that match what professionals were predicting at the tail end of last year?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting describing the market as, stable but stretched. I think it's probably half true. The predictions were halfway correct, where we still have a market that's still very stretched. We're not seeing an increase in hiring demand, which means that our workforce growth is flat. We're seeing businesses still expecting the same amount of revenue than they were when hiring demand was higher in previous periods. But what we're seeing most concerningly is that productivity growth has been stalled and has been stalled for quite a long period of time. And that means that the workforce is stretched, that businesses are requiring more than the workforces can actually give them. We're actually seeing that natural tension there with the fact that productivity growth is not increasing in recent memory as well too, which is really an interesting dynamic in the workforce. So absolutely still a stretched workforce across the industry. As stable, it's interesting. I think that stability and the stability we're seeing now is actually job hugging masquerading as stability. We're seeing a very nervous workforce and looking more broadly in the uncertainty and geopolitical, worldwide, what's going on. People are nervous and they're staying in their roles because of nervous and not confident. So I think as a HR professional and, across the industry, we're seeing a lot of HR professionals being very wary of retention. and not trusting retention headline figures, but actually making sure that we've got a solid engagement strategy to ensure that we keep that retention high, even though we've got a very nervous workforce.
Very interesting. And much like previous years, leadership development and employee experience are top HR priorities in 2026, with 63% focused on developing leaders and 57% focused on employee experience. What has been the biggest shift you have experienced or seen, and what businesses are needing from their HR teams?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing HR practitioners across the industry being more commercial in their approaches. And where traditionally, as a HR function, you'd always be looking at leadership and coaching and also engagement. What we're seeing more is a shift towards helping businesses be more productive. So HR, in a sense, can help businesses be more productive by ensuring that compliance matters are dealt with swiftly and the changing compliance landscape is managed effectively, helping businesses navigate that changing landscape that we've got, but then also entering into really concrete job design. So ensuring that the change in the jobs that we're seeing based on the technological changes across all of the industries are actually being reflected in what we're asking people to do. So there is a change, and in my experience, it's moving away from that traditional business partnering and leadership coaching through to helping businesses look over the horizon and prepare for the ever-changing employment landscape.
Definitely. And as we mentioned, 63% of HR teams are prioritising developing leaders, but 53% of HR professionals are describing their team as under-resourced. So what skills or capabilities do you think are becoming the most important for HR professionals to stay ahead in 2026?
Yeah, it's actually really fascinating because HR is a microcosm of the broader employment landscape. And where we talked previously about people feeling stretched in their roles, HR is not immune to this. We're trying to do more and help businesses more with teams that are either stable or declining in headcount. So in terms of capabilities that HR practitioners are really importantly developing over this time, it's force multiplying. And by force multiplying, what I'm talking about is being able to do the same with the same amount of headcount, be able to do more with the same amount of headcount than what we currently have. So when we talk about things like AI, like tech-enabled HR teams with automations, those are the type of capabilities that are going to set the HR practitioners that are feeling stretched apart from those HR practitioners that are feeling comfortable with that increased workload that we're seeing.
Definitely. And how do you think the role of HR has evolved over the last 6 months? And additionally, how have expectations around what businesses are needing from their HR teams have changed along with that?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. With larger organizations, we're seeing a stability, and they can afford that stability because they're large organizations where the changes in compliance, where the changes in capabilities are a lot easier than smaller organizations. So small and mid-level organizations, we've seen most of the change. And that change has been really heavily built around the admin function of HR being entirely automated and HR teams starting to understand what AI really means for them and what a tech-enabled function really means for them. So we're seeing such things as HR teams building their own systems, building their own solutions, as opposed to relying on external companies or relying on external specialists to look after those solutions as well too. So what I'm seeing in the last 6 months, I think, is going to be accelerated as we see more and more adoption of, our tech-enabled future.
Absolutely. And I'm sure if we sat here in another 6 months, it would evolve again as well. So excluding AI, if you were to look ahead for the rest of 2026 and into 2027, what trends do you think will most shape and impact the HR landscape?
Yeah, so we're already seeing some really interesting changes in the compliance landscape with, as everyone's aware, the annualized modern award challenges that are working their way through the court system at the moment will potentially fundamentally change our employment landscape in Australia for all award employees who are on annualized salaries. That's going to be a significant change from how we approach our workforces and how we approach our roles. But then more broadly, we're having governments still enshrining new pieces of policy. So recent work from home changes that have been enshrined in policy down in Victoria, once again, fundamentally changed the landscape. So on one side, yeah, absolutely, we've got all of the AI things that are happening. But on the other side, we've got a really compliance and legislative heavy year ahead of us, where we actually have to change our approach to how we manage workforces that potentially are already stretched, as we previously talked about, and might not be as engaged in their roles as we think they are.
Definitely. And our report shows that nearly 40% of HR teams have yet to invest in AI in the last 12 to 24 months. In the HR space, do you think businesses are moving fast enough with AI, or moving too slowly, or taking the right level of caution? And how do you think AI will start taking that shift to roles and expectations within HR teams?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because businesses potentially will tick that box that turns on Microsoft Copilot and they'll call their AI transformation complete. Other research that I've been seeing, from 𝗪𝗪𝘁, taken for example, shows that 93% of HR teams are saying they've adopted AI, but only 6% of those HR teams are saying that it's fully implemented. So what we're actually seeing is that everyone's throwing around those AI catchphrases and turning on Copilot and calling it done. That's not a transformation. And what is required, as we talked about with these force multipliers, is not only using AI, but using automations, using the new tech stacks that are coming online, and evolving those to change our roles from a fundamental perspective. People that are saying we're being cautious about AI adoption, unfortunately being left behind. And we're also seeing other statistics are indicating that people are using AI at home, so using their own Claude at home, their own ChatGPT at home, because it's not being fully supported by workplaces. So it's fascinating, and the generalized misunderstanding, I think, where people throw around AI and call it done and slap themselves on the back, but not actually see any fundamental changes to what they're doing. And it's because they're not looking at it correctly. It's simply not ticking a box. It's really a transformational change with how we approach our roles and how we do our jobs day to day.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that for sure. So thank you so much for your time today, Josh. So insightful and clearly so passionate about the industry and what's ahead for us as well. So if you're watching today and would like to reach out to Josh, you can reach out to him based on the contact information in the comments below. But thank you again, Josh. Really enjoyed the chat.
My pleasure.
So just a reminder that all the insights shared today are based off the 2026 Employment and Salary Trends Report. If you'd like a deeper dive into salaries, benefits, and workplace trends across your market, you can request a copy by scanning the QR code on the screen or simply clicking in the link in the comments below. Lastly, whether you're looking to grow your career or build your team with the right talent, the People to People Group can help. An award-winning recruitment agency, we operate across Australia with specialist teams in every major market. Across the ditch in New Zealand, we're proudly recruited for over 24 years through Frog Recruitment, with offices in both Auckland and Wellington. Contact details are on our screen now, and the links in the comments to reach out to one of our teams today. And if you're looking for help for recruitment within Melbourne, please reach out to myself on the details in the comments below as well. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us for the 2026 Human Resources Market Update. We look forward to seeing you next time.